A state effort to increase or revoke the bond of former Alexandria-branch Salvation Army Major Glenn Riggs, that's been rescheduled for April 10th. Riggs is charged with home invasion and out-of-state bail jumping. He's no longer with the Salvation Army. Riggs was arrested in February of 2020 after an incident at a woman's home on Lakeview Street in Pineville. He never showed up for his November 2020 arraignment, so a bench warrant was issued. Now, this past January, more than 2 years later, Riggs was tracked down in Alabama, arrested, and sent back to Rapides Parish. His bond is set at $21,500. Today, we learned Riggs was hired or has hired his own defense attorney. That's Ashley Van Earl out of Baton Rouge. His attorney filed several motions in his case, all of which will be heard on April 10th. Riggs has pleaded not guilty to his charges. That case is being prosecuted by Chris Maxwell, and Judge Greg Beard is presiding.